Value creation is a fun way to run an organization. It makes fun for the customers because they get what they want and need. It's fun for the staff because they're doing something that's meaningful. And it's even more fun for the firm and the shareholders because they make exponential amounts of money. And the age of value creation is, in fact, taking the ideas of Agile from software and applying them to the whole firm. And the result, unbelievable returns. Exponential growth compared to firms that are focused on making money. When we open the newspaper these days, there's generally a lot of bad news. In fact, it's almost all bad news. But today, we'll be talking about something that is amazingly good news for the human race. For almost 250 years, it was different. Everyone knew why businesses existed. They existed to make money. Bosses told us what to do, and it wasn't always much fun. Adam Smith explained that firms existed to make money. And the world's leading economists like Milton Friedman told us the same thing. And the Business Roundtable, 1997, told it was official. That's what businesses existed to do. And in fact, for the next 20 years after that, that's what businesses did. But 25 years ago, something else was happening. Some firms started doing things differently. They thought, what if we, instead of focusing on making money, what if we set out to create value for customers? It made sense because the internet enabled firms to make contact with customers, and customers started to have more power in the marketplace. So in fact, not paying attention to customers was a pretty bad idea. So firms thought, why not give them what they want and what they need? And when firms did that consistently, something remarkable happened. They found that they made much more money than firms that were focused on making money. And not just more money, exponentially more money. And the marketplace, the workplaces were more engaged because firms actually enjoyed creating value for other people instead of trying to squeeze out, extract money from customers. And at first it was just big tech firms. Then it was all sectors. It was retail, agriculture, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, fashion, and not just big firms, medium firms, and as we'll see, even tiny firms. So some 20% of firms by now have actually moved into this very different way of running the organization, focusing on creating value. It's kind of like the beginning of an age of value creation. And so we also have 80% of the firms that haven't made the shift, 80% still focused on making money from the customers, extracting value from the customers. So why don't these firms focus on the customers? Well, it's a huge change. That means changing pretty much everything in the organization, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we feel, the way we interact, everything becomes different. And it's so big a change that you really can't learn it from an article or a speech or a panel at a conference. You have to actually live the change and learn what it was mean for you. And so we have developed a conference that would enable people to have that kind of experience. We brought together people who know what this is about, who've been practicing this, know what works and what doesn't work. And they are here to share their experiences. And so we actually have a conference 2 days in September in Lisbon, but we've created these appetizers, a sort of short half-hour, 40-minute segment where you can get the sense of what this is in one or two dimensions and get a taste of what the whole meal will look like when you come to Lisbon. And so we're going to start with two dimensions today, how purpose is different and how leadership is different in this new way of operating. And the webinar 2 weeks ago, which you can still see on the web, was about how teams were different and how hierarchies had moved into becoming networks. But today we're focusing on purpose and leadership. And we start out with Mark Beliczky, who is going to explain what this means. And Mark is the perfect person to do this. He is currently a partner at CXO Partners, a senior executive who advises other organizations how to do this. He has long experience of practicing this, worked for the Carlyle Group, worked for Pepsi some years ago, has an amazing array of experiences. I can't think of anyone better to explain how purpose is different in this new way of operating than Mark Beliczky. Mark, take it away.
Well, thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone. I'd like to begin with a question. Why does your company exist? Why? Not what it does. So in this era of rising complexity and eroding trust, purpose isn't fluff. It's the most strategic foundation of your business. Purpose is your reason for being beyond profits, not a plaque in the lobby or a sign on your desk. It threads your values to your value creation. And when lived authentically, it becomes an integrity system, aligning strategy and action. And the data is pretty clear. Harvard Business Review reported that high performance firms outperform the market by 42% over 10 years. Deloitte found that 73% of purpose-driven employees are satisfied versus 23% elsewhere. And McKinsey found that firms with embedded purpose are 4 times likelier to achieve successful transformations. Purpose really aligns everything and everyone: strategy, culture, execution. And it also serves to drive clarity in chaos and flexibility without losing direction. So let's look at what happens when purpose is just decor and when trust unravels. Wells Fargo, the 3rd largest bank in the United States, preached, "We help customers succeed financially," while at the same time, they were pressuring their staff into opening millions of fake accounts. This slogan offered no guidance. It misaligned incentives, crushed integrity, and customer trust evaporated. This is what happens when purpose is just words and not behaviors. Now, in contrast, let's look at a company that rediscovered purpose and rebuilt credibility. For decades, General Electric stood as a symbol of industrial power. But over time, growing complexity blurred its focus. They were obsessed with profits and self-interest. GE lost its way and began a long, quiet decline. So when Larry Culp, the new CEO, arrived, he asked, "What are we really here to do?" And the transformation began. Let's hear directly from Larry.
Even your own ego, because there are a lot of CEOs, a lot of leaders say, I want to have the biggest company. And GE had been the biggest company. Yeah. And this is a decision, we're not going to be the biggest company. We're never going to be the biggest company again. How did you manage the egos involved?
Well, I think I've long believed that you're far better off being strong rather than just big. And that was a little bit of the evolution of our conversation. We're not going to be an all-singing, all-dancing GE going forward. But that doesn't mean we can't lead the energy transition. That doesn't mean we can't be a leader in precision healthcare. That doesn't mean we can't define the future of flight. And that's what these 3 businesses can do. Now, they'll do them on their own. We'll share our history, we'll share our brand, we'll hopefully share some of the operating characteristics that we've been talking about. But on a go-forward basis, I don't think there was a lot of ego involved. I think the board knew that our duty was to set the businesses up for success, to serve the teams, to serve the customers in that way. I think for some, when we were going through the deliberations, it was tough to think about a different construct than the one they had joined. But as we looked forward, and throughout that process, David, everyone was looking forward. I think there was easy consensus that each of these 3 businesses on their own bottoms were going to be industry leaders. The alignment from the boardroom through management to investors was going to be additive to the cause. So when we went around the table, it was an easy vote.
So, guided by purpose, GE split into 3 focus companies: GE Aerospace, reinventing the future of flight; GE Vernova, electrifying and decarbonizing the world; and GE Healthcare, pushing healthcare beyond limits. Each company now had one reason to exist, and it shows. Customers understood them, investors believed in them, and team members rallied behind them. That's what purpose can do. Purpose is executional integrity. And when purpose is the plan, silos dissolve, strategy adapts to meaning, and innovation creates value, not just noise. So is your purpose operational or just merely ornamental? Let's keep building with clarity, courage, and purpose. Thank you, and we'll now take a few moments to raise some questions.
All right, thank you all. I'm Joey Spooner here helping out Mark, and Mark has these following questions for everyone to answer. The best way to answer them really are through the QR code here, and if you happen to be on LinkedIn, I'll also be sharing a little URL, a little link there to visit for the poll. So here we go. Here's the link coming through for the poll. There we go. And I'll give you guys a few seconds here to either take a quick picture of the QR code and join the poll there on your phones, or you can actually click the link there that's shared as well. All right, so just a few more seconds here to let everyone get set up and give it a go. And the question that Mark has asked is purpose. About purpose, right? He's been talking about it. So purpose in my workplace, is it more like the story you heard from him about Wells Fargo, or is it from GE that's more like where you are now? Or possibly neither one. So I'll give you guys a few more seconds here to load up Mentimeter and then actually drop in your thoughts. Just one vote. All right, there we go. Okay, just a few more seconds and then we'll switch to our next question here. Thanks for doing this. All right, before I jump to the next question, Mark, what are your thoughts on this? Kind of getting interesting here.
Yeah, so no, it's interesting. And I think it's pretty clear that purpose, when it's clear and it's authentic, and when it's activated within an organization, really becomes a true force multiplier and core to value creation. So I think people are realizing that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, great. So purpose is kind of maybe in the middle for a lot of people. Okay, so moving on to the next question here. What do you want your purpose to be more like? So is it more like Wells Fargo? Is it more like GE? Or is it something different? I'll give you guys a few seconds here to vote. Hopefully you're able to do that with your phones or on your computer. And just to clarify this question, if you're confused by it at all, just basically, what do you want it to be more like? What's your future goal? More like GE experience, they have a lot more kind of autonomy, that kind of thing, more purpose where it's more focus, clear purpose of what they're doing. All right, great, wow. So Mark, what do you think of that?
Oh, no, it's not surprising. And GE is just such a compelling story of a large global organization that realizes that what was there was not working, and their whole decisions were focused on repurposing every one of those 3 major enterprises and broke up the organization, all highly successful today.
That's great news. Okay, and then one final question for everybody. Do you know how to get there? So if you want to be more like GE, which it seems like everyone's kind of voting in that direction, do you have a sense of preparedness, knowledge, ideas of where you want to go? Yes, no, or maybe. It may take a second to update on your computer screens, but once you do, please take a moment to vote. Okay. A few more seconds here and then we move on. Okay. Looks like folks are pretty much kind of in the middle with maybe. So I think, Mark, right now people either don't know how to get there or they're not quite sure. Either way, that's the final answer there. Okay.
Well, that's great. I think it just points everyone to Lisbon in September. So we'll talk more about that. But addressing the why of a company is critical. The purpose is the why, and then driving toward clarity. And then the biggest work is alignment throughout the entire organization, activating every single team member.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, with that in mind, we're now going to have a little clip here from ELF, a cosmetics company, and then we're going to jump into a little bit more on leadership from Heidi Musser. So here we go. Thank you very much, Mark. Here we are.
Value creation in a cosmetics company is illustrated by the firm ELF, a tiny firm that is growing faster than any of the big companies that you know. And it does that because the customers are part of the firm. The customers are interacting on a daily basis with the firm, with the managers, with the staff, and they become the dominant force in deciding what the firm focuses on to create value, real value for the customers. And they make a ton of money. They're growing faster than any of the most famous firms. And it's a tiny firm, less than 1,000 people. I'm bringing you this example because many people say, well, this is not very interesting, Steve, because this is just the big firms. This is just Amazon, this is just Apple. And we're not like those big firms, so it doesn't mean anything for us. But in fact, this is something that's happening in every sector, retail, agriculture, manufacturing, you name it, or fashion, cosmetics, the area you might not think that this sort of thing would be happening, but it does. And it's not just big firms, not even a tiny firm, less than 1,000 people. And what is striking is that big firms, say in a field like cosmetics, they spend billions doing studies trying to figure out what cosmetics people will want to use. And when they spent the billions, by the time they come to conclusion, the market has moved on. And in fact, people are using very different cosmetics. And so what they've done is short-circuit that whole process and have the influencers, have the movers and shakers in the cosmetic field actually inside the firm interacting on a daily basis. Look, here's something that's hot. This is worth looking into. Let's try it. Let's figure it out. Let's ask people. And in a very interactive and quick way, keeping up the market and in fact creating the market. And so they've figured out that this is just a much more efficient and much more satisfying way to work. So it's not people, bosses telling people what to do. This is about people themselves bringing their own creativity into the workplace. So they'll actually have some talks with the head of the firm, people in the firm. The workplace is fun, something you don't often hear in some of these other firms. So it's a very different way to run an organization. And don't think that your firm is too small or in the wrong sector. This is something that is going to affect all firms, every sector, every country, every size of firm. It's a change in the way the human race gets things done in business. And so we're going to turn now to a dimension of this. We've talked about purpose with Mark, and we're going to have Heidi Musser, who is a wonderfully accomplished senior executive. She sits on a number of boards discussing these issues. She herself was a leader at the USAA, had some amazing changes over a number of years, and was able to implement those changes, and now is helping other organizations make similar kind of changes. So I can't think of anyone who would be better to explain the role of leadership in this new kind of organization. Heidi?
Thank you, Steve. So you think you're a great leader, but are you? Are you fostering conditions where others can thrive and self-organize toward shared purpose, not just following your direction? That's the ultimate question, because what we've learned thus far in the 21st century is that modern leadership isn't about control. It's about context, trust, and purpose. So what is leadership? Leadership, it's a lifting of a person's vision to higher heights, the raising of a person's performance to a higher standard, the building of a person's personality beyond its normal limitations. Leadership, it's a set of mindsets and behaviors that inspires and aligns people, enabling them to collaborate and accomplish shared goals. And it supports them to adjust and thrive in changing environments, much like what we're experiencing today. Its primary purpose is to help shape direction, alignment, and commitment. Leadership, it's not about privilege, rank, or title. Rather, it's about the willingness to step up, be vulnerable, and lean into courage. Mark shared a story about when purpose goes wrong at Wells Fargo. I couldn't agree more. Purpose isn't what you say. It's not a plaque on the wall or a set of values proclaimed on your website. Nor is leadership what you say. Rather, it's how you behave. It's how you treat people. Think about this. Leadership and purpose can both serve as hiding places or as an excuse for not making difficult decisions or not changing an organization. It's easy to hide behind, but we've achieved our metrics or reached our sales goals. But at what cost? Did you actually deliver anything of value? Did you serve your customers? Did you treat your employees with dignity, empathy, and respect? And this is precisely why leadership demands courage. Courage to speak truth to power, courage to make decisions in the face of uncertainty, courage to do the right thing, courage to put others before self, and the courage to ask for help. Mark then told a story about GE, a story where rediscovering purpose became the turning point, where clarity replaced confusion and integrity replaced drift. This is not only a story about the importance of finding your sense of purpose, but this is also a story of leadership. Yes, leadership demands courage. It also demands that leaders live into their values, brave trust, and learn to rise. Because as Brene Brown taught us, who we are is how we lead. Can you imagine the courage it took Larry Culp to go small to get strong? He had to let go of his ego, and he also had to manage the egos of others. He not only had the courage to ask the question, what are we really here to do? But he also had the courage to ask for help, distribute authority, and invest in workers, in people. With the new sense of purpose, he then focused alignment from the boardroom to management, to investors, and to the people of GE. Yes, Larry Culp was the CEO of GE when he did this, but he did not achieve this turnaround alone. He asked for help, which is the core leadership discipline. This is the essence of leadership. Leadership with purpose. Some of you may have heard this referred to as purpose-driven leadership. It's a leadership style focused on guiding and inspiring others through a clear sense of mission, values, and a compelling vision for the future. It involves helping team members, ordinary human beings, if you will, find meaning in their work and fostering a culture where everyone is motivated by shared goals and a deeper sense of purpose so that they can do extraordinary things. Indeed, perhaps the greatest lesson I've learned from Peter Drucker thus far is the purpose of an organization is to help ordinary people to do extraordinary things. In a recent article published by the Boston Consulting Group, AI First Companies Win the Future, it was noted that companies today face these key challenges as they prepare for an AI first future. And they noted evolving competitive advantage, shifting P&L structure, changing the role of the IT function, a reimagined operating model, and even a transformation in the shape of the workforce. But in my opinion, they missed the key challenge. adaptive leadership imperative. Leading today not only demands courage, but it requires an understanding of complex systems, how relationships and trust and adaptive conditions shape outcomes more than top-down control. Highly effective leaders create enabling environments, structuring just enough guidance to focus energy while allowing freedom for innovation and emergence. In other words, adaptive leadership. When I talk about next generation management, I'm not pointing to a new organization chart or a clever acronym. I'm talking about a much deeper shift, one that demands new mindsets, stronger capabilities, and leadership that can thrive through complexity, not just control it. And I want to be very clear about this. This is about moving beyond frameworks and turning into the real pressures that leaders face today. AI disruption, collapsing role clarity, accelerated change, and increasing uncertainty. The age of AI is here and is already transforming how we lead, how we make decisions, and how we adapt under pressure. This is about evolving leadership that's not only more adaptive, but more human. And I think that starts right here with you, with us, and with a willingness to lean into and lead in uncertainty. So my question to you is this: does your leadership have the capability to deploy the value unlocked by AI into growth priorities? Or said differently, is your leadership able to foster growth and drive innovation supplemented by people? Yes, helping people thrive in the age of AI. This is adaptive leadership, and it's more important than ever in the age of AI. So I want you to ask yourselves, what kind of environment are you creating? Regardless of your role, okay? Who is flourishing in that environment? Are you setting the tone and making space for people to thrive? And how fast can you build the capability to lead in a new world that won't sit still? Adaptive leadership, it's the core business capability of next generation management. Agile is the core mindset of next generation management, and the willingness to ask for help is the core leadership discipline of next generation management. Modern leadership is adaptive. The ultimate question is, are you? Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Heidi. I'm back here again to help out with questions. We're going to ask just the audience a handful of questions, 3 questions. And again, we're going to be using the Menti tool to do that kind of work. So again, over here, we're going to go back to Menti, and we're going to look at a little bit of a different question. Make sure that's all there. Yeah, so there's the QR code again in case you need it, and the link is again there in the LinkedIn comment section as well as the YouTube comment section. And our question for you all here is actually kind of a simple one, but a fun one. Is leadership in your workplace more like Wells Fargo or more like GE? So we talked about purpose before. Purpose is one area of focus. Now we're looking at leadership and leadership that you see showing up in your organization. Is that more like Wells Fargo, more like GE, or neither? And I'll give you guys a few seconds here to kind of sort through which answer is the right one and get your technology right. And then we will move on from there. Sometimes there is a little delay. There we go. Wow, even Steven, that's impressive. Just give everybody a few more seconds here to put their thoughts in there. Got about 3 or 4 more votes to go through. I see a few more people who could vote. They may be trying to get it in. So far, Heidi, it looks like we've got a little bit more of people saying the workplace is a bit like GE, possibly. What do you think of that?
Quite frankly, I'm not surprised. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty and change in the world in workplaces today. And along with that uncertainty, that's frequently accompanied by a lot of fear. Not just fear of the future, but a deeper fear, a fear of irrelevance. And that often kind of paralyzes people a little bit. So leadership has some challenges and is certainly evolving in this world of uncertainty.
Yeah. Tell me about it. It's incredible. Yeah. Okay, great. I see more coming in at GE and neither as well. So kind of in the middle, perhaps. All right. So let's move on to the next question here, which is, what do you want your leadership to be more like? Is that more like Wells Fargo, GE, or none of the above? So let's see what people say. I'll give you guys a few seconds here to punch in your answers. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to say GE, but I'm curious to see what they'll say. You never know. While we're waiting for people to put their votes in here, Heidi, one of the things that I'm always trying to keep up with and study is the AI side of things. Now, AI is putting so much pressure on businesses these days, and I can only imagine the challenge that leaders are facing to say, how do we work with that? How do we adapt to that? How do we integrate that? And what are our competitors doing with that? And how do we lead in that context of just that new added pressure, basically? It's impressive.
Yeah, these are extraordinary times, no doubt. And, Mark talked a lot about leadership's role in purpose, clarity, alignment. But, coming back to that courage, how do we encourage people to try things, to experiment, to be curious? Are we creating environments where people can go out and be curious and learn and bring back those lessons and share those with others?
Yeah. That's curious to me, because if you look at GE as sort of the top vote right now, you kind of have to wonder, or either one of those, you have to kind of wonder, do they have that experimentation in mind? Do they have a way of building that experimentation into their organization successfully, safely, right? Because in the chaos environment, you kind of go, well, experiments can sit and wait. We'll come back to that later. And we're just trying to keep the boat afloat, so to speak. And then suddenly, we should have been experimenting, and now we're really behind. Yeah.
Experiment, have an idea, try it, do the simplest thing that works, get some feedback. What did we learn? Do more of what works, do less of what doesn't. Those, by the way, are all some basic principles and mindsets and values we've learned from Agile over the years.
I believe it. So with that in mind, let's move over to the last question here. Do you know how to get there? That's the big question. So in terms of leadership, do you know how to get your leadership to that place where they can actually be more like what you're talking about? So some of you had listed GE as one. The other one said neither. But either way, do you know how you can get to that level of leadership that you're looking for? Are you able to make that happen in your organization yourself? Or is that someone else you can influence? Do you know how to get there or not? Okay, so one no so far. We've got a few more people that probably will vote here in a second. Let's just give you guys a few seconds to drop in your votes. Don't be afraid. We don't know who you are. So you can be as honest as you'd like. Okay, interesting. We're talking about that experimentation piece and sort of leading through that model of saying we can create a place to actually experiment and have some good ideas to work with. And if you're not able to get there, you don't know how to get there, that's a fun challenge ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we know how to get there, and yet we don't always have the courage or even skills to behave that way. We don't know how. Maybe we haven't seen it modeled. Maybe we haven't learned that. So we have an idea. We frequently have an idea of how to get there before we know how to actually take that first step in actually getting there.
Yeah.
Step at a time. It does not happen by standing still.
No, I don't think so. I think you have to jump off the diving board, so to speak. Given the summer time frame, I think to get a high dive and jump off the high dive eventually as an experiment. So Thanks so much, Heidi. That was great. So I think at this point, we're going to conclude here and actually have Steve do a little bit more, share a little bit more from his perspective on the conference itself and also leadership. So thanks again, Heidi. We're going to switch over here.
Are you interested in change? Are you interested in making your organization more productive? Are you interested in having a workplace that's fun, that's exciting? In Lisbon in September, there's a fun conference happening. It's light, it's energetic, and it's about creating value faster. You will encounter a different way of running an organization, a different way to create value for your customers, a different way to create an inspiring workplace in touch with the times, taking advantage of digital, taking advantage of AI, creating the firm of the future. Come to the Lisbon conference, September 23rd and 24th. I hope to see you there. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Let me say one or two things about how this webinar is different from the conference. One is that this was an appetizer. So there's a lot more in the main course. So in particular, this is learned not by listening to speeches, but by interacting with practitioners. And so the conference has been turned a traditional sort of session on its head, and now it's mainly interaction. At least 50% of the time and more is interacting with other practitioners, interacting with the speakers, getting a sense of what about this, what about that, what if we did this, how do you know about that, and having all those kind of conversations. That's how you get a feel of how this might interact. And so that will be very different from the traditional conference. In fact, a new kind of conference for this new way of running organizations. And it's also one in which we'll be able to have look at more than just snapshots. Today, we've had snapshots of two firms, but these have only glimpsed at the trajectory of those firms. Just to give you an illustration, I did some work in GE Health back in 2012, 13 years ago, at a point where the top of GE was being run in a very traditional fashion, top-down directive, totally focused on making money. But GE Health, where I was working, was already in this mode. And they told me they were a sleeper cell within GE overall and actively trying to change GE. So Larry Culp, when he arrived, was not sort of coming from outside and with a godlike saying, this is what we need to do. He already found within GE elements that were already doing everything that he was about to spread throughout the whole organization. And that sense of the trajectory, the transition, is one of the things that we'll be conveying in Lisbon. This is not an overnight thing. It's not some coming down from on high. This is something that is created interactively between the staff and managers at all levels of the organization, and building on the existing things. And I think we've already had some hints in the discussions today that this is, in many organizations, this is happening in part, already happening in sections of the organization, even if it isn't shared at the top of the organization. And this, to have the full change, does in fact eventually need the whole top of the organization behind it. But one can make enormous progress and lay the foundation even before the top gets the message. So in Lisbon, you'll be able to get more of that depth and more of the sense of the interaction, more of the depth of the trajectory of starting lower down in the organization sometime, or starting higher up in the organization, and then seeing how those pieces fit together. And so it is a big change. It does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. It does involve difference in the way we think, the way we speak, the way we act, the way we interact. It is really, everything is different. But as I said at the start of the organization, this is actually good news for the human race. This is creating workplaces that are fun, workplaces that create value for other human beings, that workplaces that are not stultifying and crushing the human spirit, where engagement is low. This is creating workplaces where engagement is high, where customers are satisfied, and in fact, shareholders and the firm makes exponentially more money. So it's good news for almost everyone that gets involved in it. And I strongly recommend that you join us in Lisbon to learn more about it and create the age of creating value. Thanks a lot.